Welcome back, Weirds and Weeboos, to the free-to-play series for Plants vs. Zombies Heroes. So, today, I'm actually going to take a quick look at finally crafting my first set of cards. Now, I've actually played quite a lot since the last video. Literally, like, every day since that video's been out, I have been, coming onto this account and playing a little bit. And I know that that's a long gap in between episodes, but the main reason for that is kind of similar to what I said in that first video. There isn't really much interesting to show in the time, like, in between there, because I'm essentially just playing game after game after game of Ranked, and I was just buying premium packs whenever I earned enough, and trying to get as many event cards as possible. Although I suppose that's something I should explain as well, because I forgot to mention that in my last video. Every single week, there will be a weekly event card in Plants vs. Zombies Heroes, and you'll earn tickets every time you win a game, and if you earn 1,200 tickets, you will unlock one copy of this card for free. You get 15 tickets per win, but every 4 hours, you'll be able to multiply those rewards by using certain classes. So if I used a Smarty hero or a Guardian hero, I'd get 5 times the amount of tickets for winning, 75. Or if I use both a Sneaky and a Brainy hero on the zombie side, if I use both classes named, I could get 10 times instead. The importance of this event card depends from week to week. Of course, sometimes the event card isn't going to be that great, but either way, they're generally worth getting because event cards are equal to super rare in cost. Although I'm not sure if there's still a few that cost double. For some event cards, and I'm pretty sure it's literally just completely arbitrary, some of them cost 2,000 sparks instead of 1,000, and I don't remember if they recycle for more. And I don't remember if that's been changed now to not be the case anymore, if that's still the case for some cards. I think they generally did it when the event cards were newer, and now every event card in the game is old, so I think they should all cost 1,000, but there might be a couple that cost 2,000. Anyway, yeah, so I keep clicking off this. The main event card for this week is Corn Dog, which is an alright card. This is definitely one of the less exciting event cards. It's a card that's a 2-cost 3/2 with Amphibious, which looks really good because a 2-cost 3/2 Amphibious is a really good card. It's literally just that cattail card we got as a starter card, except it costs 1 less and is in Guardian instead of Smarty. But then it has Hunt, which if anything is actually a pretty bad ability. It makes it so whenever a zombie is played, that plant moves to chase that zombie. And obviously this has some applications when, like, oh, you really want to make sure that this blocks whatever zombies they play. But generally this card is best used to be played in the water lane and deal a good amount of damage in a lane that they can't protect. But now, instead of that you being able to get loads of damage through, obviously they just drag it onto the ground lane by playing a zombie there, and then it dies. And then they'll obviously almost always play something that trades well into it as well. So yeah, Corn Dog is a bit of a rough spot overall, but it's not a bad card. It's still worth getting. I still don't think I'd probably recycle it, because it is just simply good stats. But yeah, compared to some other ones, it's not that crazy. Anyway. So let's take a look at the collection. What have we got in this time? Well, there's a couple things that we got that are kind of nice. We got Guacodile, which is still a relatively useful card, although sadly it has dropped off in usefulness. This used to be back in set 1 an absolute staple of any control deck, but now it's generally kind of outclassed, but still not a bad card. We do have 3 Gravebusters. These are very often dead cards, which does make them kind of frustrating to run a lot of in your deck. However, I think that as we get to higher ranks, this will actually be a very good card to run, because almost every single high tier deck needs to use a lot of gravestones. The only heroes that don't use gravestones a lot are heroes that are not sneaky. And well, I mentioned Sneaky is one of the best classes in the game. So yeah, even the Brainy class has a good amount of gravestones in it. So, if those are the 2 main classes that come to mind when I think of classes that play a lot of gravestones, and those are the 2 best classes in the game for zombies, then yeah, you can see why Gravebuster would be a card I'm actually excited about, even though it might seem quite, like to be a dead card quite a lot of the time. We have got a legendary here. We got Poppin' Poppies, which is really good to see. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make use of this yet, but this is definitely one of the better ones I could have gotten for the Guardian class. I think this card, in fact, is actually still to this day underrated, even though people seem to realise it's good. It's a 6-cost 4/4 that makes 3 1-health little buddies with team up in its own lane as well as the lanes next door. And when they hit the board, they heal you for 2 each. So this is a 6-cost 4/4 that provides 3 1-health shields on 3 different lanes, while also healing you for 6. And this might still seem like not that impressive. It's not even though that you use this card with some obscure combo where you make all the 1-health things get a buff that like affects all plants. That's not really why this card is good. The reason why this card is good is this is a single card that blocks 3 lanes simultaneously while also healing you. The amount of times that I'm going to die next turn and then I play Poppin' Poppies and then I win is yeah, it's quite common. But yeah, that's the Guardian class. In the Kabloom class, we got a couple event cards here. I didn't actually get that many copies of a few of them, because a few of them, the 2 classes I needed on both sides, were a combination of 2 I didn't have, which meant that I could only get 5 times tickets whenever I got the bonus, not 10 times. And that really hurts your ability to be able to get lots of copies of them. But we got 1 high voltage current, which is an okay 1-drop. The main problem is it's just a 1/1, and, you know, 1/1s aren't very good. But its ability is that it gets +1 attack whenever another berry does damage, and when you play it, it gives you a random berry card from the rest of the game, so it does replace itself, so it's still not a bad card, even if it's not great stats for a 1-drop. And I also got Sonic Bloom, which is a decent finisher in any kind of aggressive, kind of, you know, get on the board fast kind of deck, which of course Bloom specializes in. But again, only 1 copy. Other than that, not many standout cards. I very recently got Grapes of Wrath, which is a good finisher, but I have barely been able to play with it because it's one of the most recent cards I've gotten. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this was the first legendary I got on this account. I actually got it even back when I recorded that first video. So far I haven't got much use out of it. It might be a recycle. As I say, this card used to be a lot more useful. I'm not going to recycle it yet, but I'm just saying I'm considering it. In the Mega Grow class, I don't think we got much special. Well, I say that, we got 2 Black Eyed Peas, which is a really good super rare to get. Even though it's not anything that crazy, this card is just simply really good. It's just very good stats, and if they try to kill it with tricks, it will start growing, which makes it really hard to get rid of. So, yeah, very, very respectable card. And of course we have this as a very annoying finisher for the opponent. But other than that, not much interesting going on in the Mega Grow class, I guess, except that we got 3 plant foods, which is really nice, because this is one of the most important cards in the class. But it is only a rare, so it's not that hard to craft more if we need more. So yeah. In the Smarty class, we actually have already dusted a legendary. The second legendary I got was Wintermelon, and this card is one of the worst legendaries in the game. The main reason for that is because it only belongs in 1 deck, and that's the freeze deck. And while freeze decks aren't bad, and they are really, really annoying to play against if you're the victim of them, at the same time, this is probably the greediest and, like, least useful card in the freeze deck, despite being a legendary. So, yeah, it's not ideal, this card. I just literally just dusted it the second I got it, because I'm like, I can get better stuff than that. So yeah. Other than that, the only particularly rare card we have is Snapdragon, which is simply a card with splash damage 3, so it'll hit the next door lanes when it attacks. However, it cannot deal 9 damage to the face like that. Like, if it hits face and there's no blockers on any of the 3 lanes, it will only still deal damage in the middle lane. It can only deal damage to zombies that are in the next door lanes. But yeah, this is actually a pretty good card, as boring as this may seem. Mostly because if they play a zombie to the right of this, or just play a zombie in any lane that isn't the leftmost one, you can always play the Snapdragon to the left of that zombie, and if it has 3 or less health, you can kill it before it even gets to attack, which is really, really nice. And of course, sometimes you get to kill multiple zombies in 1 attack. So this is a relatively good control card, as unassuming as it looks. And then in the Solar class, we got 3 Sun Shrooms as an event card. I'm going to be very interested to try this out. I heard this card's really bad, but I always thought this card was really good. Well, not really good. There are better cards out there, but, you know, not bad. I always thought this was a decent card, so I guess we're going to see. But it's mostly outclassed because Twin Sunflower got buffed. this used to have 1 health, and now it has 2. It's a lot better, and people actually use it on ranked, and it's actually quite good. And this just gives you +2 suns straight away, whereas this one only gives you +1 sun straight away, and then the turn after it'll start giving you +2 sun every turn. It does get 1 extra health from that, but yeah, definitely generally Twin Sunflower beats this out now. But of course we don't have any Twin Sunflowers, but we have 3 of these, which is very nice. And of course, if you ever find yourself with such a ramp-heavy deck that you actually want to run both this and Twin Sunflower, then there you go. You got, like, essentially 8 copies of Twin Sunflower in that way. We also have 2 second-best tacos of all time, which, there's 2 of them. I guess they must be tied in greatness. Nah, but anyway, this card is actually really good again, as unassuming as it looks. There's a reason why this became a super rare, because this was actually a very common card to be run in just about any control deck. Healing 4 and drawing a card is just good in this game. Games go so fast that the healing's super valuable. It actually really helps extend your clock, and drawing a card in its place means that it's obviously not kind of wasting your value to spend a whole card to, heal for only 4 health because you get your card back. So yeah, it helps you cycle as well. And of course, it's an activator for any heal synergy. We got Sunstrike, which I don't see this card that often, but in my opinion, this is a very scary finisher in the Solar class, and part of the reason why Solar Aggro actually genuinely works. Just giving every single plant strike through for a turn and giving you a random trick is very scary, especially because this... I mean, I guess you just think about it like this. What if you could just have a turn where your entire board is unblockable and it only costs 4 to do it? That's what this card is, and it even does more than that. So, yeah, that's pretty good. There's Laser Beam, which is just a very well-statted unit with Strike Through, which is also a good finisher. And the only super I haven't got much use out of yet in this class is Tactical Cuke, because this very specifically belongs in a super control-y deck that probably wants a lot of expensive cards. So for that reason, it might be a dust, just because I'm thinking, I'm not sure, like, I'm going to be able to have enough resources to make the deck that makes this card work. Even though I don't think this card is terrible. I used to think it was terrible, as I say, but I've come to realise over time this card is better than I thought. But yeah, as I say, with the current collection, I haven't really been able to use that card much. On the zombies, the only thing in... Well, I say the only thing in Beastly, I did get this legendary Zombot 1000. As I mentioned, though, this is unfortunately not that good most of the time, as crazy as it looks. Like, oh my god, it's a 9-cost 9/9, and it wipes the entire board. What the hell? That's got to be an instant win. And yeah, in other card games, I imagine it would be. In Hearthstone, I imagine an enormous unit that destroys all enemy units instantly. Or in undercards, I imagine that would usually be a game-winning play. The problem is, as I mentioned last video, this is a zombie card. As in, you play this, and then after you play this, the plants get to have their turn. They can block the 9 damage with whatever they want, or if they have a Sham Rocket, they can just kill that 9/9 for 3, and then they still have 6 or more sun left over to play new plants onto the board. And yeah, you're kind of not really trading up anymore then when you play this card. But if you can find any way to either put this in a gravestone or teleport it in Brainy to play it during tricks, then it suddenly becomes a whole lot better and genuinely does become an amazing finisher. But of course at that point, you're very rarely getting this down on turn 9, you usually get it down on turn 10 or later. And that's where you really get into, wow, is the game even going to go that long? So, a bit of a rough one. We might recycle it if we really need the sparks, but it's not a bad card. Well, it's easy to apply. I can just kind of put it in a deck and it'll add more value to the deck at the moment, so we'll keep it around. And of course we've got an event card here, Synchronized Swimmer. This is a very interesting card because this seems really overpowered, but then it ends up being just decent. It's not quite as broken as it looks, just because of the way, again, Plants vs Zombies is a very different kind of card game. So, yeah, when you play this, it will copy the stats of another zombie, and it's amphibious, and it's a 2-cost 2/2. This seems crazy busted at first, because, yeah, if you wanted to, you could get huge value by making this, like, a 2-cost, like, 10/10 in the water, which is obviously like, whoa, what the hell, how is that even fair? And of course, because it already has 2/2 stats, if there's nothing to copy, then it's still a 2-cost 2/2 amphibious, which isn't even that bad. But you run into the issue of it's just stats, and again, zombies play first. So if the plants have any way to counter that, or just even block it so they don't have to deal with it for a bit, they will easily be able to do that. So, yeah, again, unless you're reserving extra resources to find ways to get those big stats through, Synchronized Swimmer kind of struggles to really, you know, be as powerful as they seem to be. But as I say, that doesn't mean they're a bad card. They're still decent stats. They're still going to probably go into quite a few of my decks right now that I've got a smaller connection. For some reason, I've barely got any Brainy cards, but yeah, we've still got a few. We've got one Electrician, which I'm kind of interested to see how good this card is. I'm much more used to using Lurch for Lunch, and I think I actually dusted my Electricians on my main account when they became super rare. Not because they were bad, but just because they became super rare and I wanted Sparks, and I was like, well, I mean, I have Lurch for Lunch, I don't need Electrician as well, I'll just dust these. So we'll keep this and see how it does. I definitely think it's a decent card. And we have one Rocket Science, which is very good to have. It's not quite as busted as Sham Rocket. I know you might be thinking, wait, what? Why not? Because, you know, Shamrock is literally the same card but on the plants. But it's just because of the fact that on the zombies, you have to commit to saving enough brains to play Rocket Science, which not only means that you have to know you want to play it, not knowing what your opponent's going to play yet, but you also have to telegraph to your opponent, hey, I'm saving 3 brains for tricks, which means I could potentially Rocket Science, just know that that could happen. Whereas on plants, you just wait to see what the opponent plays, and then the second you get the opportunity to play, you can already see what they've played, and you can already be like, oh, I'll just pay 3 to kill that. So, you know, this isn't as stupid as Shamrocket, but that certainly doesn't mean it's bad. Very good card. I suppose I don't have that many cards in Crazy either. The only super rare I have is Firework Zombie, which is generally used in more expensive control decks, and obviously right now I don't have the cards for that, or like splash damage synergy decks, which don't typically tend to be very good at being aggressive. They also tend to be more control-y decks. So yeah, this card is going to struggle to see use for me for right now, but it is a good card, so I'm going to hold on to it. Other than that, not much here. Except I will mention, even though this is a common, this is a very good starting out card. Like, just 5 cost 3/4, do 3 damage is really, really good. And the only condition is playing it on heights, the leftmost lane, which is super easy to meet. This is only a problem if you run lots of copies of them, and you have multiple copies, but you can't play them all on the leftmost lane, because you already have one on the leftmost lane. That's really the only time at which this card becomes a problem. Other than that, this is literally just a 5 cost 3/4, do 3 damage, which is a really good deal. Now, this is what I was really excited for, the Hearty class. We just got given some really good stuff for the Hearty class. So, I guess the main thing to point out is this, going viral. I was lucky enough that during this time, in between these episodes, one of the event cards was going viral. This is the single most important card in the entire Hearty class, and one of the most powerful cards on the zombie side, full stop. I keep mentioning how one of the biggest problems with playing zombies is you play a big unit and then they just put something in front of it. And either that thing instantly answers that big unit, or at the very least, it blocks that big unit from getting its enormous, super important attack in until a later turn when they do have a solution to it that just goes, right, there you go, it's dead, you know. Then you've got Going Viral, though, a card which not only cycles itself, but also gives every zombie on your board +1/+1 and Frenzy, which basically means that it is a 3-cost trick which not only buffs your entire board and cycles itself, but also makes every single big zombie you play able to attack through everything that tries to block it. They have to be fully killed, or they will just completely tear through any blockers in the way. So yeah, you can see why this card is such an enormous deal. In a game where whenever you play big stuff as zombies, they can just block it. Having a card that makes all of your zombies say, nah, if you just try and block me, I'm just going to frenzy right through, is super good. Like, we had a couple cards that could do something like this before, but most of them are way too slow, like Coffee Zombie, which somehow I don't have any copies of yet. But this is still a decent card, but it does the same thing as going viral without drawing a card for 6. It does have some stats with it, obviously, and it does give itself +1/+1, so it is a 5/4. So again, don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad card, but obviously going viral just blows it out of the water. It just comes down so much earlier. So yeah, we are really glad to have 3 copies of this. It only could have been better if we could get 4, but I couldn't quite get 4 in time. But luckily, you know, 3 is usually enough anyway, especially because it shuffles more copies of itself into your deck every time you play it. So yeah. In terms of super rares, we have 2. We have Landscaper, which, to be honest, I'm kind of surprised they made this card a super rare when it used to be a rare, because I swear this card isn't even that good. It's more just annoying, but sure, it's not like it's bad, it's just, you know, not that good. So, but it's still a decent card, and I don't have that many cards right now, so I'm holding on to it, but I could see myself recycling that in future. An All-Star Zombie. This one, as simple as it is a very good card. It's armoured, so it takes 1 less damage from everything, and it has Frenzy, so even without going viral, it'll attack through anything that blocks it as long as it can kill it. And yeah, this is just an amazing stat line, especially when Sports Synergy is, as I mentioned, one of the best synergies for budget players. Having essentially a 5-cost 4/7 with the armor, and that's assuming it dies in 1 hit, which is almost never going to happen. It will usually be 2 or 3 hits, so we're talking more like a 4/8 or a 4/9. Yeah, it's pretty good looking. But of course, I'm kind of ignoring the elephants in the room right here. We've got 2 legendaries in the Hearty class here. Undying Pharaoh, who makes it so it is impossible for us to die. Our health cannot go below 1 as long as it's alive. The way that works, in case you're wondering, is you will still take damage as normal until you hit 1 health. If you take damage from something that should kill you, then instead it just puts you at 1. And if you're already at 1 and you get hit, it just doesn't even register the hit. It doesn't even charge your block meter. It doesn't do anything. It's like that attack just never even happened. So, as cool as this is, I'm going to dust it. Look, I know this card has its fans. It's not the worst legendary in the game or anything, but at the end of the day, there isn't really a deck that has a use for Undying Pharaoh, except just generally decks that want to go late game. At the end of the day, it is a 6/4/6, which sometimes saves your life, so it's not like it's one of the worst legendaries. It's easy to use, but yeah, in terms of just, if I'm trying to make the best decks, I don't know what deck uses this card. So, as much as a beloved meme this card is, I think it's that I do want to recycle it. Especially because it'll give me 1,000 sparks for recycling a legendary. The other legendary we got is Zombie King. Now, unfortunately, this is another one that isn't that great, but this one I will keep because at the point I'm at right now, this can give me quite a boost. As you can see, it's a 4-cost 3/5, so decent stats, and at the end of every turn, it will transform another random zombie into a 5/5 Knight of the Living Dead with Armored 2. Which is kind of funny, this is the only card in the game, that Knight is the only card in the game that has Armored 2, which obviously means it takes 2 less damage every time it gets hit. And as you can imagine, already being a 5/5 and taking 2 less damage from everything makes it extremely tanky. So yeah, obviously the idea with this is that you put a bunch of small units on the board and you put down your Zombie King, and they struggle to kill it because it has 5 health for 4, and then the Zombie King just goes off, starts transforming all your little guys into these nearly unkillable, pretty big units. And then obviously you just hit them with a going viral and they frenzy right through and you win. So yeah, it's certainly going to be good for us right now, but once we get to more like well-constructed decks in the future, it might not be as useful. But there is one deck that uses this that could be really strong that I can think of, which is the Knights that it summons are 7 costs technically, and there are cards in this game that transform a zombie into a random zombie that costs 1 more. And especially because there's only 2 8-drops on the zombie side in the entire game, and both of them are pretty good, it's really powerful to play Night of the Living Dead, and then use leap effects to transform them into new, zombies that are super strong and powerful. Especially if you get 2 in a row to transform it into a 9-cost, because that Zombot card from earlier, which destroys all plants, is the only 9-cost in the game, so you're guaranteed to get that. So yeah, I got a lot more cards in the Hearty class, so might end up using the Hearty class more than I thought. And then finally there's the Sneaky class. So we do have Imposter here, which is a very good one-drop. Not overpowered or anything, but it's an imp card. Imp synergy is really good. It's just generally very reliable. It replaces itself with another card. It's nice. Oh yeah, when it says it gives the imp a mustache, that just means, as you could guess, it has the mustache tag now. That very rarely matters. It's mostly just a haha, it's funny they have a mustache now thing. But it can matter if you're obviously running a mustache synergy deck. But we don't have any mustache synergy cards at the moment, and I don't think I'd go out of my way to do that. But yeah, we got Zombot Aerostatic Gondola here, which whenever it hurts the plant hero, it moves to a random lane and leaves behind a random zombie. This card, honestly, I think it's not bad for us right now, because again, we don't have very well constructed decks at the moment, but I am not all that, like, enthusiastic about this card, because it's really hard to actually get this to hit face. You then need to have the random zombie it summons be something worthwhile, and you also really want to hope that when you do land a hit with this, that it moves to the right and not to the left, so that it gets to attack another time in the same turn. But a lot of the time, of course, it will just randomly decide to move to the left. Unless you have the luxury of being able to put it in the leftmost lane and guarantee you at least get one other attack, because it can only move right. But, you know, you're already trying to hit them in the face with this thing, which they're definitely going to try and block. You've really got to put in a lot of effort to make this card get value. And at the end of the day, there are other cards that do it easier. But as I say, for now, it's a keep just because it's good value, and it's, you know, we don't really have to build a deck around it. But the other thing in the sneaky class that's really good that we have is Pogo over here. There's another card that used to be a rare that they made super rare, unfortunately, but this is an absolute staple of basically every single good sneaky deck that isn't aggro. Obviously, it's a 4-cost 2/2, which isn't great stats, but it has Gravestone, and when it pops out, it bounces a plant. It might sound super simple, it might sound like that's not all that much, but again, remember that games usually end around turn 7 in this game, and this is a 4-drop, so this is coming down on towards the left half of the game. So often, before they can replay the thing that you bounce back into their hand, they will be dying. Especially because this bounces something after the plants have already played. You both get to choose what to bounce once you've seen what they play, and you also get to kind of guarantee almost... yeah, 90% of the time, you can guarantee that once you bounce that plant, if that was a plant blocking a certain attacker, that attacker will hit face. So yeah, you can see how usually this card in combination with the things you played the turns before will be enough to end the game before the opponent can replay whatever you bounced into their hand. And with all the Gravestone synergy in this class, obviously this card has a lot to work with. Only thing we need is more copies of it. So anyway, that's the whole collection we have right now. What am I going to do with this collection? I'm going to craft 4 copies of Toxic Waste Imp. I thought a lot about what I would go to craft next, like when I was looking at all the cards in the collection and all that, as like my first card that like, yeah, I want to get lots of copies of this. I knew whatever it was, I would be wanting to get 3 or 4 copies, so it was a card I can consistently get. And I was thinking it would probably be a rare at first, until I realised that basically every rare that I want is already a card I have enough copies of, like I don't really need to craft more. So I think the much more important thing is to get super rares now, and I'm looking at the different super rares that I was thinking of getting, and the only one which I could see kind of taking the spot of Toxic Waste Imp is Quick Draw Conman, for the simple reason that this is one of the most busted 1-drops in the game and is stupidly aggressive, really hard to get rid of, constantly deals damage to the opponent without them getting any charge in their block meter. Just insanely good aggro card, part of the reason that Electric Boogaloo aggro is so good. But at the end of the day, that would be in the Crazy class, which is just going to be Infinity. Whereas, with what I have right now, I have 2 zombies in the Sneaky class, which already in its own is already a really good class as well. Like, when I fill out its collection more, it's probably going to be my strongest class. So it sounds like a better idea to me to invest in the Sneaky class. And what I would go for first, if I was trying to make Imp Synergy, would be Imp Commander. But I already had a quest to craft one of these as Impfinity, and I already got enough of them in packs that I already have 4 copies, so I don't need to craft any of these. But I will say, if you don't have these yet, you do want 4 copies of this before you get any Toxic Waste Imps. This is probably the most important card to any Imp Synergy deck, because, well, This just means that you never run out of fuel. You always have more cards as long as you keep hitting the opponent, and with imps it's very easy to just keep hitting the opponent. So yeah, and it's also not even bad stats for a 3-drop with such a powerful ability. So yeah, I'm going to get Toxic Waste Imp. It will make all imps deadly, and it itself is a 2-cost 2/2 barrel imp with Amphibious. And yeah, this is going to be very powerful. It's going to make it so all our tiny little imps are going to be able to insta-kill anything that tries to block them. So yeah, with all that said, how about we put it into a deck? Because now we can basically almost make a full-on, fully functional imp deck. Straight away, no synergy with the actual imp stuff. We want 4 copies of Bungee Plumber just because it's a really good 1-drop. Like, just simply this 1-cost trick is an absolute staple of just about every crazy deck. Very few crazy decks do not want this card. So yeah, this is also probably the best 1-drop we have that's got anything to do with imps. That's our main problem right now, is we could have used a few more copies of Imposter, because when you look at 1-drops for imps, we've got a 1/1 with no abilities. We got a 1/1 that does more damage if it hits face, but it's always going to be blocked if we play it turn 1. So it's not really a 1-drop. So that's a bad idea. And that's basically it for what we have right now. So we're going to have to put some other 1-drops in that aren't imps. We'll put in Buried Treasure. This will give us a random legendary and reduce its cost by 1 if we play a zombie on top of it. But on its own, it's also just a 1-cost 2/2, which isn't bad stats. And I guess because even though it's not an imp, on Life of the Party, we'll get +1/+1 whenever we play a zombie, and we're going to be playing a lot of zombies since imps is a very swarmy archetype. We can fill the rest of this 1-drop slot with on Life of the Party. As for 2-drops, we want 4 Hot Dog Imps. They're just 2-cost 2/2s with Strike Through, but obviously Strike Through means that their attacks won't be blocked by putting plants in front of them, and that makes it way easier to hit face with them, which will draw us cards with Imp Commander. We're going to put in 4 copies of Toxic Waste Imp. I will say that Fishy Imp is not a bad card to use at first, but obviously Toxic Waste Imp outclasses it, so, you know, once you get Toxic Waste Imp, you want to cut these, but early on, if you need more imps and you feel like the people you're running into don't usually have defenders in the water lane and you really want to get around their blockers, then this isn't a bad card to use as a budget player. Let's see, yeah, 4 copies of this, absolutely. We'll want Pogo, because even though it's typically better in more control-y decks, obviously here it fits nice as a kind of top end to be able to get through like any blockers towards the end of the game, and you know, set up some game-winning scenarios. I have kind of come around on this card. Exploding Imp is a 3-cost 6/1 Gravestone that at the end of turn does 1 damage to itself. I definitely think this isn't one of the strongest imp cards, but I used to think this card was absolute garbage and a laughing stock. But honestly, the more I played around with it, I'm starting to think that I was probably too harsh on this card. I mostly looked at it as a worse sneaky imp. Is that what it's called? This guy? And already this card is kind of stealthy imp. And already this one is a bit of a weird one. It deals 6 damage if it hits face, but otherwise it's just a 2/2. So if you want to use this card, you've really got to run a lot of tricks that help it out. And if you don't have a lot of tricks to help it out, then it's a pretty bad card. And I just saw this as, oh, it's just stealthy imp, but it dies after you land 1 attack, and it's in crazy. That sucks. But actually, I think the fact that this doesn't have to hit face to deal 6 damage means that it's a lot more generally applicable. There's a lot of times where just being able to do 6 damage to whatever's in that lane is really, really nice, even if you're not going to hit face. And hey, if you hit face, all the better. That's 6 damage to face, and you probably draw a card as well, because you probably have an Imp Commander on the board. So yeah, unfortunately we can't put Fireworks Zombie into this deck, because it would probably just kill most of our imps. So, yeah, that's unfortunately a no-go. Do I want to put in Walrus Rider? This is generally a pretty bad card, but it is an imp, and it would likely hit face a decent amount because it's amphibious, so I'll sneak one in, I guess. We are going to put this card in just because it's good value as like the top end of the deck, even if it's not like that great. We'll put 2 soldiers in. I'd put more, but again, if we put too many copies in, then we won't be able to play the like 3rd and 4th copy most likely on the Heights lane if we drew multiple of them. Because again, we have to wait for the last one to die before we can play it on the Heights lane again, and it's really a waste if we don't play it on Heights. Oh wait, I didn't even add this to the deck. We're going to want a couple environments so that if the opponent plays an environment, we'll be able to replace it. So we'll put in 2 Is this Meteor Z? Yeah, Meteor Z. We'll put in 2 of those to give zombies their +2 attack while they're in the environment. We could use a couple more bouncers, so I'll put 2 of those in. I suppose I was hesitant to add this card because it's definitely one of the weaker imp cards, but we do want more imps. It is more strike-through damage, that will sometimes be enough to kill. This evolution does really suck though. Like, not that bouncing a plant is bad, but bouncing a plant before you have the plants play, so they get to play something right after you bounce it, and having to replace an already existing zombie with a badly statted 5-drop to be able to get that is like, eh. But it has strike through and it's an imp, so like I've gotta use it. I'll put this in as well. This just gives the zombie +1, +3, +1, but it's a trick, which means that you can sometimes catch people off guard with it. So okay, we've actually done most of these right now. How many of these are pirates? Is it worth like making this sort of pirate synergy? We've got a pirate here. Obviously this is a pirate. Are there any other pirates here? I think this is considered a pirate. Yeah, but this one isn't that important. I'm thinking of adding in Swashbuckler. Whenever a pirate hurts the plant hero, that pirate gets +1/+1. Okay. Better question, how many gravestones? We got 1 there. We obviously got Pogo. Not many gravestones either. Do we want Smoke Bomb? I don't think we want Smoke Bomb. Okay, this is going to get a bit tricky, because how we could easily fill this deck is just go, oh, let's just fill the rest of it with these. There we go. But then these cards, if we run these, we have to run Smoke Bombs to make them good. But if we run Smoke Bombs, then we're filling the deck with too much garbage. Okay, how about we run 2 of these? Because I was thinking, actually, I said that we need Smoke Bombs. We might not, because we do have 3 bouncers. And do I run Orchestra Conductor? I've never run this card, but I'm just looking at it in this deck, and in this deck it might actually be not bad. We'll try it. We'll see how it goes. Alright, there we go. And I put in 1 other bounce, just because I know now that we're going to run 2 stealthy imps, so we want even more bounce. So yeah, we've got 4 bounce cards in total, and yeah, this is how I'm going to try and make this imp synergy deck. Now, of course, if I could have 4 copies of every card, this is not how it would look. I would run a lot more 4-ofs, and I would cut a lot of cards that don't really need to be in the deck as 1-ofs or 2-ofs. You know, this would probably come out, this would probably come out. Of course, though, I think it's still right to build it like this, because at the end of the day, you're not going to have 4 copies of everything that you're going to put in your deck either as a budget player. Like, you can make a budget deck which technically doesn't use very many cards that are very expensive at all, but even still, a lot of budget players won't have all the cards they need even for other budget decks if those budget decks regularly use 4 copies of every card in them. Even if that's a good idea, you will almost certainly have to do some crafting to get all the cards needed for that. That's also why I think it's important to show you the whole deck building process here, because if I don't, then I feel like all that will happen is when you get round to making your deck on your new account, trying to work as well as possible that you can with the cards that you have, you'll just be like, wait, but my cards are different and I don't know what to do about that. I don't have this one, I don't have this one, but then was that one actually important to the deck? You know, so hopefully you'll find this helpful. As you can see, I finished last season at Diamond rank, and I'm once again at Diamond rank again, which you might be actually a little bit surprised, but yeah, it's quite easy to get through gold rank. I managed to make it to rank 36, in fact, last season in total, so getting close to Taco League. So I'll say this, even with a very scattered and small collection, if you play well, I think that it's very feasible for you to get to Diamond. Like, actually very feasible if you just, you know, you're dedicated, you play a decent amount, you know, you play smart. I think that being realistic, most people probably couldn't reach Taco League with just like a very small collection of random disparate cards, but I do think it's doable. Like, as I say, I got to 36, so if I kept playing constantly, if I was playing more regularly, I think I could have reached Taco League with even with like really bad cards. Obviously, Ultimate League, getting to rank 50 with like a really bad collection, I'd say it's doable, but yeah, you would obviously have to be really dedicated and play a hell of a lot, so that obviously is a bit of a reach. But yeah, genuinely, just by playing smart and, you know, doing the best with what you have, I think that you can get pretty far, even with a small collection in this game. I've mainly just been playing with a Green Shadow deck, which has actually surprised me. Somehow this has been my most effective deck on the plants. And maybe even my most effective deck on ladder in general, since I've done really well with the plants so far. This is just a collection of just stuff. Like, there isn't much of a theme with this deck. It's more just, I don't have the cards to make a very themed deck, so here's just stuff that I own that is good in these classes. But this deck's actually been doing pretty good. I mean, I guess the win condition here, quote-unquote, is to get a big buff on either Repeat Moss, Repeater, or a plant in Coffee Grounds that's been given Double Strike, so that you get lots of damage off of one buff, and then, yeah, obviously just use plant food to be able to get lots of bonus attacks with that super high damage, or sometimes even Espresso Fiesta, and there's a little bit of peace energy in there. This deck I thought would be kind of a mess, and probably one of my weakest decks, but this has actually been doing really well. Which is kind of funny. I'm kind of surprised. I don't know what's up with that. It's been doing really, really well. The other deck, obviously, was an Infinity deck. I actually shouldn't have deleted that. But it wasn't that different to the deck I made here. It just obviously wasn't quite as all-in on imps. It included Swashbuckler and it had a bit more pirates, because I didn't have enough like imps to make a full-on imp deck. I kind of went half pirates as well, and that's probably my best deck on the zombies. So yeah, I'll say that I've actually really struggled to win with Super Brains, which has kind of surprised me. Not that I thought that Super Brains was going to be busted the best hero. I did think that Infinity was probably going to be the best hero to start out, but I've actually been winning more with the Smash than Super Brains, which definitely caught me off guard. I was expecting the Smash would do better. Sorry, it would do worse. But I don't know what it is. It feels like I don't get enough time to set up my kind of game-winning plays with Super Brains, even though I do. There is potential there. I've mostly been playing just Infinity and Green Shadow if I've been playing to win. And obviously every now and then, whenever it's for a quest or for a ticket bonus, I obviously play the other heroes. But for the most part, very rarely been playing anyone else. I've been playing a bit of Captain Combustible, but one thing which really surprises me, I'm genuinely caught off guard by this, is that I thought Captain Combustible would be my best hero on the plants, but as I say, it's been Green Shadow. I thought that Repeat Moss with Captain Combustible would just be super good. And it is when I get it, but it just seems like, because with Captain Combustible, I have to get Repeat Moss to be able to do my, like, actually strong plays. Whereas with Green Shadow, I can get Repeater instead, or this instead, or this instead, or this instead. I think it's just because I've got multiple win conditions here. This one's actually been doing better. Alright, let's try this deck out then. We've already got a pretty good curve for this starting hand. The only thing that could be better is if on Life of the Party was an imposter instead. But obviously we're not going to complain about it. So typically this is not a card you actually want to play turn 1, because you want to leave it until later to let it grow, especially because it's only a 1/1 to start. But since this deck isn't all that built around this card compared to some other decks, I'm actually just going to throw it out there, because there's a good chance if they have Weed Whack or some... yeah, okay, so that's the worst case scenario, that they have a 1-cost 2/2. That's the main reason why it can be a really bad idea to play this turn 1. What I was hoping is that they might have Weed Whack as their starting power, the one that gives -2/-2, because that's one of Rose's powers, and it would just use that to kill it, because if they use that to kill it, they wouldn't use it to kill this. If they do have Weed Whack, then it does really hurt here, because now they just use it on this, but they don't. Alright. So their power is either Freeze, Goatify, or Transmogrify, the one that turns it into a random 1-drop. It could be any of those, because like, even though they can make this smaller, there's a good argument to not bother at the moment. It is just a 2-drop, so turning it into a 1-drop doesn't do much. Do I just drop this down then? I'm just thinking if Rose has that many cards that can kill a 4 health unit on turn 3. I'm pretty sure the answer is no. Unless, again, they mog it or go to fire it, which there's a pretty high chance they do, to be fair. But I can't really do much about that. Obviously, I don't have anything else in my hand to bait it out. Oh. Huh. Well, I wasn't expecting that. I'm fine with that, though. I can still bungee plumber that to kill it. Ah, there we go. We got a nice strike through Imp. Okay. So, I am tempted to just drop 2 of these, but I think it's best that I save 2 brains for tricks. Because... oh, I think that's the wrong play. You should be hammering this. And freeze is their starting power. So, yeah. Okay, so the reason why I saved 2 brains here was because what I would have liked to do is simply overwrite this environment with my own one, but I was preparing for the situation where I need to use a bungee plumber and do that. They will get to block here, though, which means that now they will get a power that isn't freeze. Oh, that's pretty good for us, I think, actually. Unless they can kill that, like, basically instantly. Like, before I get to my tricks phase. I think that's actually pretty good, because I still get the card draw from this. Yeah, I think I saved 3 left over, so I can overwrite this environment on Bungee Plumber, or if I need to, just bounce. Oh, ho, ho. Yeah, as scary as Starfruit is, it's so useless against any crazy hero, because you pay 5 to play a card I can kill for 1. Easily. And say goodbye to your environment. Well, yeah, this is a pretty good start. So this is the real strength of these Imp decks as well. This is why I especially said this is probably the most important card in the deck. Because at this point we should really be running out of resources with the amount of cards we played, but we've drawn an enormous amount off that commander while still being able to do a lot of damage to face. I think it's not smart to try to close out the kill this turn. I'm just going to play that there, which is still going to do a lot of damage. There's certainly plays we can make to try and get lethal right now, but I think it's best that we just leave this bounce open as an option, try and play around whatever happens. Is this deck built around Planet of the Grapes? That'd be interesting, because you don't see this anymore ever since the nerf to 3 Sun. Outside of Cycle Cap. They might just literally be dead. Wait, if they... either they might not block, and even if they block, if they get Mog... yeah, they just didn't block. Even if they did block, if they got Mog, then they would have to Mog to the middle one, and there's still a decent chance that the 1-drop it turns into has 2 attack and they still die. Alright then. Unless I have another game. Oh yeah, I could have gotten 10 times tickets there by playing Super Brains instead, but I will admit, since Corn Dog is a nice but not super important card, and since I really struggle to win with Super Brains at the moment, whereas my Infinity deck is really good, I'm not really bothering with trying to get the 10 times ticket with Super Brains. I'm just sticking with 5 times with Infinity. Okay, so we got our early turn sorted. I think with... ooh, okay, right. Well, that makes my decision way easier. I was thinking, do I play this turn 1, or do I just keep Bungee Plumber open? I was thinking I'd do this anyway, but getting Super to start absolutely locks that in, because I can play this with Super next turn, and it'll be a 3-3. I guess this goes in the rightmost lane. We're kind of hoping that this doesn't put 1 in the water lane, because it's going to be harder to keep the Toxic Waste Imp alive if it can't go in the water. That's perfect, actually. I think those are exactly the 2 lanes I'd want it in. Alright, already a third of their health is gone. So yeah, obviously it'd be more efficient to play the Bomb Imp, but I think this is the better play. I think next turn we can go Strike Through plus Creep, most likely. Okay, so they have a Berry Blast to kill that, that's fine. got it out of their hand. That's all they did for the entire turn, so they're not playing too efficiently. And yeah, they're already down to their last third of health. And we've got two different options here as well. We can overwrite their environment if we need to, or we can just go for the sugar. Yeah, just for that. Oh, huh. Oh wow. Okay, that's a play. Well, I think that's just them lost. Them losing, because if I play this, there's no way they live right, because they could block it, but then they still take 5 here, and I don't die here. There's no way I die here. Technically, I should overwrite this environment to make sure I don't die, but no matter what power he gets, I'm still alive here. Bonus attack is scary, it puts me down to 2, but I'm still not dead. Or that puts me down to 2. So it's scary, but I'm still not dead. Alright then.
1, 2, 3. There's a zombie.
Right? Ah, okay. This is especially bad because now I need both of them to go on the right. Because if I set this off. Oh boy. Nope. Oh, that is extremely annoying. Roll 1. Oh, I can never get lucky. I can never have it. Yeah, that's death. We just have to see what legendary we get, and if it doesn't save us, that's death. And it doesn't save us, that's death. Yeah, that one galactic cactus actually screwed over everything, preventing us from being able to kill the black-eyed pea, also killing the unlife of the party that would have otherwise lived with 1 health and spiraled out of control. Oh boy, that was awful. Which, by the way, that's why black-eyed pea is so busted. Worst case scenario, it's got good stats. Best case scenario, it snowballs out of control, and anything you could potentially ever use to kill it just gets countered, and then you've wasted brains just making it bigger. I think I don't know when we ever play this card if we make this play, and there's a good chance the answer is never, but I think this is just too good of a setup to wait. We have to play this on 1 because this is coming down on 2, and then when this comes down on 3. Yeah. Also, bro, do we have to... Another galactic cactus, and it landed both of these on the right side. I mean, I guess at least it didn't block this, so that it set it off straight away, but ugh. I do not like this. There might actually be an argument for not playing this yet and playing the strike through first. Because that leads better into our turn 3 play. And I don't think Deadly's going to be relevant. Okay, it was relevant. Well, actually, no, it wouldn't have changed things if I don't think they would have blocked the 2 ones with that, so I don't think it changes much. Okay, as tempted as I am to drop the Unit Commander, I'm actually thinking maybe we do this instead. They really want that Galactic Cactus to be set off to get rid of both of these, but I'm just not going to let them. I'm going to get more face damage in. I might not need the cards if I can actually just kill them fast enough with just the face damage. Okay, this is the point where I set it off, I guess. Because I really want to put this in this slot. That's another reason why it kind of sucks that the imp landed here. Is because I want this as far to the right as possible. And I would have been fine with the 3rd lane, but then they put this in the 3rd lane, so... Oh! Wait, that's your entire turn? Oh, okay. That's pretty good for me. Yeah, they're looking pretty dead right now. I mean, I'm not going to call it yet. They might play Bodyguard, get a really good power that saves them. Wait, no, even with Bodyguard, they're dead. Yeah, they're dead. Yeah, you can see imps, they really are a very good deck. Honestly, like, obviously this deck is a little bit rough just because I don't have 4 copies of everything I want. There is stuff I would cut if I had all the copies I wanted. But I mean, I think I've shown you in those games that this is surprisingly strong for a deck that is so scattered, and I think that's mostly just because Imp Synergy is really strong. Never see people talk about it. I mean, not that people don't use Imp Synergy, but I never see people really talk about Imp Synergy in this game, whereas I see people talk a lot more about the other synergies. And I guess maybe it's just because it's accepted so much as such a staple strategy, but I think it's worth repeating. Imps, they are a really, really good strategy if you want to get far as a more budgety player. And even at the highest of ranks, I would still say that Imps does really well as a strategy. Just that you need 4 copies of this. This card is busted. Yeah, so this is a 4-cost 3/5 strike through with Amphibious, which is already really good on its own with no ability, and its ability lets it move to the right and attack again because of the fact that combat goes left to right. Every hit it gets. So this is regularly a 6/5 or a 9/5 with strike through for 4. That's an imp. Yeah, you can be drawing a card for every one of those hits, which is insane. And you can even pair it with well, this environment is usually not a good environment. It's usually a meme, but Moonbase C, 3-cost environment. Zombies here get overshoot 3, which makes them deal 3 damage directly to the enemy hero before they even do their attack, which means that you can get 2 hits at once with the Space Cowboy, and that makes it so that the overshoot will either hit and it'll move, or that means it gets another attack, or it will block the overshoot, but then the strike through will hit and then it moves to the right. So even when they block, they aren't saved with that. So yeah, this card's really good with that. Obviously, the only reason we haven't crafted it is because it's a legendary. It costs 4,000 to craft, and then when we craft one, we only have 1 copy and we need 4. So, you know, that's why I'm advising against getting legendaries. But on top of that, I think that one thing that I also think is pretty underrated is Neptuna specifically, who is the sneaky and hearty hero. Neptuna, Imp Synergy, is actually really good. Really good, in fact. Like, it probably doesn't seem like it because, you know, Infinity's clearly the one made for Imp Synergy. But the main thing is, of course, that Imps are super swarmy. And then you give them going viral. Yeah, you can probably see how that gets really, really strong when you have constant non-stop card draw from Imp Commander, super swarmy units, and then a board-wide buff that gives them all frenzy to attack through and also draws you more cards. You have almost infinite value in a deck that's also aggressive because it's imps, which is really, really powerful. As well as that, obviously this is not a proper option for budget players, but if you do get any intergalactic warlords, that obviously fits nicely into a swarmy imp deck.